We are back, and we are joined now by Eleni Schirmer, writer and organizer with the Debt Collective. Eleni, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Of course. So, we've had Astra Taylor on a bunch of times on the show, and it's a never-ending struggle here to get rid of student debt. It's been 1 year. It's the 1-year anniversary of Biden announcing that initial debt relief, 10 to 20,000 for people below the income threshold that was set, and I guess the additional 10,000 is the Pell Grant forgiveness, and then the Supreme Court struck it down. So, where are we, as an organizer with the Debt Collective? If you could just bring our audience up to speed about where we are at today.
Well, I think the big thing that we've learned over the last year is that there's a way to cancel debt that cancels debt, and there's a way to cancel debt that creates opportunities for lawsuits, that generates complex bureaucratic applications, chances for the people that need relief the most to get left behind, opportunities for loan servicers to fumble the ball and drop it. And that is we're at this moment right now. Is the president, we've seen very clearly in the last year since Biden's announcement to cancel debt, a lot of folks in the Debt Collective and activists and organizers calling for debt relief were really disappointed when the president set up the initial program instead of automatically canceling debt and then going on national TV and saying, folks, I canceled your debt. He got on national TV and said, guys, I think I have a plan. I think I'm going to cancel your debt. And you'll just have to fill out some paperwork and then it'll be all set in stone. What happened is that there was a 6-week delay between Biden's initial announcement of his intention to cancel debt and his unrolling of the application. In that time, 6 different right-wing lawsuits were filed to challenge the legality of the program. Got a national injunction was upheld by the lower courts, and then just earlier this summer, sustained by the Supreme Court, blocking the effort. And what we see is that in other attempts since that time, Biden has actually discharged debt for almost 1 million people who have been in debt, student debt for more than 20 years, have had their balances totally zeroed out. And that's a curious thing. How was Biden able to do this, even though the Supreme Court struck down relief? And part of the reason why that worked is because the people that have had their debt canceled didn't have to apply for it. There wasn't a complex means testing to determine who was and wasn't eligible. It was automatically and totally canceled. And that's the way that we know that canceling debt actually works. The Biden administration is currently sort of doing a big press release around its revisions to the income-driven repayment program, which is an opportunity for borrowers to pay loans proportionate to their income. In theory, this could potentially help people lower their loan balance. What we're seeing is that folks who are trying to enroll in this new program are seeing their loan payments jump up, double, triple the amount that they had or should be paying, which causes all kinds of confusion and raises questions about why, why this way.
Well, I just want to jump in there because I hadn't heard your criticism about the lag time articulated in the way that you did, because on our show, we were very critical of his usage of the HEROES Act to cancel the debt, as opposed to doing it through the statutory authority that is given to the Department of Education under the Higher Education Act, which would just allow for the DOE to have the discretion to cancel debt more just broadly, right? But right. This is an issue with Democrats, and particularly establishment Democrats. I liken it to, in COVID, how we didn't expand Medicaid or Medicare, we expanded COBRA, even though that was more costly, more bureaucratic, and it's because we didn't want to let people know, hey, we could just do this and do Medicare. Yeah, and it's like this. It's almost as if he made it so much more flimsy, both through the usage of the HEROES Act, but then also the means testing that you described, which came later and allowed for that lag time where lawsuits could be filed instead of just announcing the debt and then not having people apply, just canceling it writ large.
Right.
And making it a jubilee as opposed to some sort of application process. That is almost, I think, even more important than what he used as the authority, because the Supreme Court, whatever, they're partisan and they don't really care. It's the fact that he gave these right-wing groups that opportunity through the means testing and the time that took to file these lawsuits.
Right. I think that I absolutely agree with you. It's, the fact of the matter is it was perfectly legal for Biden to cancel debt under the HEROES Act. The plan that he proposed was perfectly legal. It would also be perfectly legal if he had chose to use the Higher Education Act.
Right.
So what we're left with is not the major question on the table isn't which mechanism to use. It's how strategic is the plan to actually execute this, with how much conviction, with how much understanding that this is actually, we're in a kind of lawfare legal battle over this. And Biden has to be thinking a few steps down the road, preparing for the next challenges, because they will come. This is a contested ground. As soon as the president follows through on his proposal, it's really historic. The idea of canceling debt is shifting the bedrock of the foundation of our nation. It's a big deal. It's the level of the reaction from the right is proportionate to the ambition of the policy. I think Biden should be applauded for that. And he needs to have a strategy commensurate with the actual aim of this program, ready to win. Cancel the debt and then tell everybody that you've canceled it. And good luck to the politicians and the legal firms that try to claw that back from people.
Yeah. Right. Don't say like, hey, I'm coming to let's use a football analogy. Like, we're calling a pass play. It's a screen.
That's right.
Just be defense.
You might
be
want
prepared.
To be in the left corner.
Yeah. Yes. Right. Exactly. Don't do that. And just call the play. Try to run the offense. It's maddening.
Exactly that. And the Debt Collective. I wrote a story last summer for the New Yorker about the fact that old folks over age 62 are the fastest growing demographic of student debtors. And I think that's an important, that story, it's still true that people are continuing to age into their debt faster than they're aging out of it. And the fact that any attempt to sort of slow walk cancellation just increases the number of people in the last third of their life who are still hanging on to this debt. But what I want to say is that in the process of writing the story about old folks with student debt, I encountered a 91-year-old woman who had borrowed $30,000 of loans in the 80s to go to law school. She was one of the first Black women to graduate from New York University Law School. When I spoke with her in 2022, she was 91. She had more than $300,000 of debt. This was a totally bizarre situation. For the process of reporting the story, spoke to folks at the Department of Education who confirmed to me, essentially, I think their analysis was, holy shit, we really effed this up. And they began a process of looking into how this woman's debt could be discharged. Long story short, they were able to discharge her debt, which was fantastic for Betty Ann, life-changing for Betty Ann, and also troublesome for her. She wondered, if they could do this now, why couldn't they have done this 10 years ago? And if they did this for me, what's the plan for the rest of the 43 million people? So the Debt Collective has been working for the past year to come up with a legal tool that is going to go live on Monday. That is you fill out a form, some basic information about your loan, and we on the back end generate a legal memo that gets sent to the Secretary of Education.
Wow.
So we know you have the power to cancel this debt. Go ahead and do it. So we're excited. I think we're really excited about this tool, and we're fully aware that this is not, the best way to cancel. The best way to cancel debt is to actually just cancel debt, not make people have to raise their hands one by one to petition for their debts to be canceled. But we'll use that power as long as we have to until the president gets it right.
Can you tell us more about that tool? That's very exciting, and I think some people in our audience might benefit from that. Yeah,
absolutely. We're building off of the legacy of some of the initial projects of the Debt Collective with students who attended for-profit colleges who were defrauded by their college. And our legal team discovered that there's a particular legal clause that allows borrowers who have been defrauded by their colleges to file for borrower defense to repayment, basically saying that if they were screwed over by their college, they don't have to pay back a scam loan. There's a more legally sophisticated analysis of that, but that was basically the program.
Right.
And at the Debt Collective, we similarly worked to build an online tool to help people fill out these forms calling for the exercise of this clause for their debt to be released. And we got tens of thousands of people to fill it out. And eventually the Obama administration at the time took up this tool as part of their own. And now it's part of the platform it's one of the tools that the Biden administration is now using to discharge debt, is this borrower defense tool. So, what started as this one by one people saying, hey, I know that the Department of Education has the power to discharge this debt, please do it, turned into over 7 years of debtors organizing, going on strike, making demand after demand, and standing together in solidarity, refusing to pay back these loans that they shouldn't have to pay. The Obama administration started a process. The Trump administration tried to stop it, and the Biden administration is again trying to make good on this promise to borrowers to discharge their loans. And what we see, works is when the loans get discharged, not by borrower at a time, but when they get discharged universally, automatically, all together as a class. This is to disperse the debt. And that's the process that we're starting right now, not just for folks that attended for-profit loans, but for everybody who has a federal student loan. Go to the Debt Collective website. We're going to be having a big mass call about this on Tuesday evening to walk through. It's pretty simple, asks for basic information. How old are you? How long have you had your loan? My favorite question is how has this loan effed up your life?
Yeah.
And then on the back end, we generate some legal language that justifies why this loan is not serving this person, why they have the right to call for its cancellation. And then it sends a letter to the Secretary of Education and the Ombuds office at the Department of Education. For us at the Debt Collective, we hope that they listen to these letters. We also see these letters as a flag for people to hold as they walk into the street, marching and calling for full cancellation for everybody. So I think it's an important and necessary but insufficient step for what needs to happen.
Well, it should not fall on people. Obviously, as you've said. Can you talk about the importance of this as we come up closer to the dreaded dates in September and October, where interest is resuming on federal student loans September 1st, and then the payments are going to begin to start to be collected by the Department of Education in October?
That's right. So, this is a funny thing that the president has decided that the year that he's also running for re-election is going to turn on student loans. He probably will run against the man Trump, who initially paused loans for people. We are wondering why.
That's a good point, and not one that I want to hear, but a good one, yes.
At this point, as Biden's decision to turn payments back on is, going to enshrine him as the debt collector in chief, we say at the Debt Collective. So this means that payments start, the loans turn back on September 1st, payments start coming due in October. For the first year that payments, there's what the Biden administration is calling an on-ramp. I think this is an attempt to soften the blow for payments, that in the first year of payments turning back on, the kinds of punishments that debtors ordinarily face for failing to make their payments, going into default or delinquency on their loan, will be paused. So it's more or less safe to not pay loans. At the Debt Collective, one of our organizing strategies is to encourage people, if they can safely manage to not pay loans, and to join what we call the debt strike. which is this collective refusal. We can't pay these loans and we won't pay these loans. And this on-ramp year that we have is an opportunity for folks to join the debt strike without major, not paying loans can be a dangerous thing. Going into default is not something on your loans can really mess over your life. And it's not something we treat lightly. But if the Biden administration has made the dumb move to turn loans back on, but provided this sort of safety belt that goes with it of blocking default and delinquency, we're welcoming people to join the debt strike. And everybody who's even thinking about not paying on their loans should definitely be sure to fill out this petition to call for the administration to cancel their loans. We're calling it the Biden Better Have Our Money tool. And so that's, I think, going to be an important part of returning, as payments. Borrowers won't forget that the president has the power to cancel student loans. That hasn't been taken away by the Supreme Court. It's a question now of how much conviction Biden's going to use to actually be bold and use that power.
It seemed like at least the debt collective did have his ear at some point in this process.
Yeah.
It was not enough. It was less than what Schumer and Warren were calling for, 50,000. But some debt he chose to cancel, even though he was using this, Byzantine application process, the means testing, all the garbage associated. But at this point, maybe you don't feel comfortable expanding on this, but I am curious what your take is. Do you feel that you still have that point of contact, of that ability to make your voice heard on this front? Because it seems like we're in a space where he's not, moving to the left on this.
That's right. I think it's an interesting question. I think I absolutely agree with you that Biden really didn't want to cancel debt. He did it with his gritting his teeth and practical.
He was the credit card senator.
That's right.
He believes in the disciplinary power of debt.
That's exactly right. So for him to make a move on this is he really had to come through a lot of his own work to try to pass this policy. So I think we congratulate him. We're happy that he took that first step. I think the fact that he, on June 30th, when the Supreme Court in the morning announced their decision that they were going to uphold the lawsuit, Nebraska v. Biden, that upheld the basically that blocked relief. That afternoon of that same day, Biden had a press conference saying that he was going to use the Higher Education Act to issue a Plan B. This is exactly what the debt collective had been, and others have been calling for, to say, use the Higher Education Act to cancel debt. We wish he had listened more closely when we said it's not so much which act you use, it's how you use it, and with the political savvy and strategy. Why that's not happening, I don't know. I wish the debt collective had, the authority to give him a talking to on what to do next. I don't know that I think it's a question of how strong we organize for it. I think we'll get the win that we organize for. Which is why I really encourage folks to anybody who's interested in this and concerned about this and wants their debt or their kids' debt or their parents' debt released, should definitely join the debt collective, follow our Twitter, sign up for our emails, come to our meetings. I think that's going to be the way out of this. I don't have a ton of faith that Biden on his own has a great compass on this issue.
Really lastly here, it's Jeff Zients is now the chief of staff and not Ron Klain. Right.
Yep. And I think that, Ron Klain had been he was supportive of debt cancellation. That was a shift. I think I don't think that I can't give much comment. I don't have much awareness of what the internal factions in the White House for debt cancellation, but I would imagine there's lots of folks that are, this isn't their policy. They don't think this is, they have all kinds of misconceptions about who this benefits. The story, that really tried and true story that this debt cancellation is a handout for the rich elite really needs to be retired. The folks that have the most student debt are Black and brown women. They're poor folks, they're working class folks. 40% of people who have student debt didn't get the college degree to go with it. So any earnings that they would have didn't, their earnings haven't been boosted, although the debt has been assumed. So I don't doubt that there's folks in the White House who have some flat to bad understandings of what the problem actually is.
Yeah, well, and then we'll just be clear, that's just your speculation, and it was because I was speculating and I asked you to do so, totally fine. But Eleni Schirmer, thank you so much for your time today. Writer, organizer with the Debt Collective, and everybody be on the lookout for the Debt Collective's tool next week that could help you as, again, those dates approach with payments resuming. Thanks so much for
having me on. Take care.
Of course. Yeah. Great to chat with you.
Yes, you too. Bye.
Bye.